And I am here as a parent and as a school counselor. I wanted to say too that I even said back there, I don't want to be the first to speak, but that's okay. All right, first I want to thank the board for all the work that you have done, for the time that you put in. I know it's a lot of hours, of volunteer hours, and I also want to say thank you for keeping our kids in school and honestly having the masks on. That's what I'm here to speak about. Last week, as we all know, on Wednesday, the mask mandate was lifted for a few hours. And I'm going to say right away, everyone was like, oh my goodness, Jess, we can take these off. I'll even admit that even myself at first, I was like, good, I can take this off. I never had.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was even like, good, I get to take this mask off. But what I'm going to say is quickly, I realized something. And I think it's something that many parents that are here tonight realized also, that when we do not have that mask mandate, that all of a sudden there possibly could be many more students excluded from school. Because the game changes. Because no longer do we have the protection of you have a mask on, I have a mask on, the distance that we're at is pretty safe. But all of a sudden we are back to what the CDC recommends, and that if you are within a certain amount of space that you have to be quarantined unless you're vaccinated. Quickly, I realize that it doesn't matter if I'm vaccinated or somebody else is vaccinated, or if I have a mask on and somebody doesn't have a mask on, but all the rules have changed. And so what I'm here to kind of ask is that we look at the mask mandate again for our school. And the reason I'm asking that is, and I'm well aware, many people are probably going to say that this is because of the football team, or this is because of this group, or this is because of that group. Oh, okay. And I'm sorry, but what I want to say is I think we need to look at our mask mandate because of all students. I know many people right away were like, oh, can we separate certain students? I am well aware that we cannot do that. I am well aware that that is discrimination. If you would all of a sudden set certain students on one side of the room and other students on the other side. I'm in no way asking that. But what I am asking is that we all, I guess, just take a look at how this is going to affect every single student. From the athletes, to the kids in the band, to the kids that can miss out on an interview to go to college, the kids that could miss out on a dance recital, the kids that could miss out on any experience they possibly could have through school. I lived the life of a parent of telling a high school senior, you can't do this because that was canceled because of COVID. It's not nice. It's not a good place to be as a parent. I think we need to look at how this affects the students that want to be in school, because guess what? Their home life is awful. Like maybe their home life is being at home with an abusive parent, being home with a parent that's drunk. Who knows what it is? And we have those kids. We have kids from K to 12 that much rather be at school than at home. And my worry is that if the mask mandate is lifted again, then what does that mean for our kids? What does it mean for the exclusion of our kids? How many kids will be out of school? I want to keep the kids in school. I'm going to be very honest. My child's going to stay in school. Okay? My child's vaccinated, and that was his choice. I asked him what he wanted to do. He said, I want to be vaccinated because I don't want to be excluded from anything. So it's not my child that I'm worried about. It's all of the kids that I'm worried about. I also asked him, I said, you know what, if you wearing a mask meant other kids got to stay in school, what would you do? And he said, I'd wear the mask. Okay? He wants his teammates in school. He wants his friends in school. He's willing to wear that mask. I can't speak for every student. I can't speak for every parent. But I can tell you, there are a lot of parents that want their kids in school. And I think we just need to look at if it's the health and safety plan, if it's other choices we have, what is it to keep our kids in school? Every day at my school, K to 2, I see the results of kids not being in school when we weren't here. I don't want to have that happen again. And I think just reality kind of hit us last week when all of a sudden we didn't have to wear the masks. That was great, but on the flip side of that, it's not so great if there's kids that are going to be excluded. And just to end, I guess I just want to say, I hope we are all kind to each other. Today, in my school, is Meaningful Monday. And if any of you walk into Spring Cove Elementary, one of the first things you'll see is this huge bucket on our wall. And for those of you that don't know what that bucket is about, that's our bucket filling bucket. And we teach our kids to be a bucket filler. We teach our kids to be kind to each other. They can earn Dragon Fire. If you ask any kid K to 2, what's Dragon Fire? They'll tell you. Dragon Fire is something that you can earn for filling a bucket, for being respectful, for being kind. And I guess that's just what I want to end with. I know my point of view up here tonight is not going to be popular with some people. But I just ask that we are kind to each other and respect each other in those point of views. So, once again, thank you so much for everything you guys have been doing for keeping our kids in school. I appreciate that. I just want to continue to keep our kids in school no matter what that means. Thank you.
Last week's announcements.
Hi, I'm Ashley Snell. My address is 1459 Henry Road in Martinsburg. I just have a request of you. There is an attorney by the name of Eric Winters. He practices law through Prince Law Firm in Berks County. Last year he won a case against Governor Law. He is offering free legal advice and answering questions for free for any superintendent, principal, or school board member, not for any parents. I don't mean any disrespect for the current solicitor, but second opinions are never a bad thing. We all excel in different areas. I just ask that you all individually would reach out and take advantage of this opportunity for any questions that you may have. And I can give you his number, his direct number is 610-845-3803, extension 84187. Thank you.
Misty Fisher.
Hi, good evening. I'm Misty Fisher. I live at 1832 Freehill Road, Martinsburg, PA. Good evening. I'm not here because I'm a public speaker. Honestly, I have a degree in business and never did well with public speaking. I am here for the voices of these kids. First, I believe in personal choices, both for the mask and for the vaccination. I'm not here to try to take that away from anyone. My kids will not be vaccinated under any circumstances. With that being said, I've also watched my daughter 2 years ago miss out on her senior year and her senior prom. I've been told by several people lately that our school district caters to the football team. That is not the case. Several months ago, I approached Stacy with an idea of taking charter buses to the away football games. I also spoke to Dr. Baker on the matter. I've been told that it cannot happen because extracurricular activities is under contract with a local busing company. While I respect that and believe me that I'm not trying to take away from local business whatsoever. However, I do not believe it would be detrimental if a few of the sports would be able to use charter buses every once in a while. The quarterback club was willing to pay for any different costs that would occur. Every sport would have the same opportunity to do the same. Our issue was due to safety concerns. How big some of our players are and how much equipment they have to take along with them. The buses are packed, the seats are full, the aisles are full. If an accident would ever occur, how would they get out safely? Due to busing availability, the ninth graders were not even able to leave at the same time as the rest. While some see it as, well, at least they got to go, I see it as, well, it's one team not leaving as a team. While it might be under contract right now, it will be a choice if it continues to always be under contract. Next issue. If you are aware, we were told not to give a send-off or a celebration on Friday night. We were told to meet at the field for a celebration afterwards. Every school does a send-off. The boys absolutely love it. Quit being so hard. Let these kids have some fun. And last, the big controversy in the room. Do I believe masks work? Absolutely not. Do I believe in personal choices? Yes, I do. But, however, because of the rules on the DOH website, if these masks come off, how many players will be in quarantine? This team has worked their butts off to get where they are. They have shed their blood, sweat, and tears into this. They have an opportunity of making school history. This could all be flushed down the toilet all over a mask. Are you aware that last week, the day that the mask came off, that one day, Dr. Baker sent out an email to the high school teachers that they are not allowed to let the football players sit together in class to avoid quarantine. If they are asked, they are to be told no because it's discrimination to the other kids. You're probably going to say they are still masked right now, so what does it even matter? Well, we all know they are going to come off, but what happens when they do? It very well could be while these boys are chasing a state championship or say a baseball season when they're doing the same thing. When you have a football player or a baseball player, or let's say a band member, a student trying to protect an immunocompromised family member, or Johnny that doesn't want to be quarantined because he doesn't want to miss school because of his grades, or Sally that's wearing one because she's afraid of getting COVID. If these kids are willing to put on a mask for whatever reason that may be, should you be able to tell them no, they can't sit together? If they choose to sit away from the non-maskers, it's not anything against them. It's keeping them from not getting quarantined because that's the rules that make no sense. So being a mom who believes in choices, but also a football mom that sees these boys of just wanting their hopes and dreams to become a reality, I see both sides. We have a common goal, and it is what is best for our children. We will see these masks come off for those that choose for them to come off, whether that's tomorrow or whether that's 2 months from now. I just ask that whenever it does, that we can come up with something together, such as letting them change seats every 15 minutes because the rules state that if you sit closer than 15 minutes, you could change every 15 minutes and then they wouldn't technically have to quarantine. Or whether they want to sit with other kids with masks on just because you don't want to have to quarantine. I don't think that should be so wrong. So whatever for reason that it might be, just don't destroy these boys' dreams. Thank you for your time.
Brenda Credit.
Brenda Frederick, 745 Kensington Road, Martinsburg. Tonight, I wanted to address the school board specifically, not Dr. Baker. She's the superintendent. She is simply put here by the taxpayers, and she's paid to make school board decisions, or to make sure that the board decisions are followed through with, and oversee the school district's daily functions. She's not an elected official, and she doesn't get a vote. I'm also not addressing the solicitor. She too sits here on the taxpayer's dime, giving advice which, in my opinion, isn't backed up constitutionally, and also, most of the time, none of us can ever understand what she's saying. members, each and every one of you took an oath of office. You swore to support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and also the Constitution of our Commonwealth. Am I correct in that? Yes. Yep. You all also were sworn in legally by a person qualified to administer that oath. Am I correct on that as well? I mean, that's the policy, right? In taking that oath, you swore to obey the state constitution, which states, no human authority can, in any case whatsoever, control or interfere with the rights of conscience. Conscience, by definition, is the inner sense of what is right and what is wrong. Also, I would like to state that according to the court case, Lisa H. versus the State Board of Education, students literally own the right to be educated. I also want to state, so I'm aware that you all know, which I'm sure you do, but I just want to make sure, that last week, 4 judges have deemed that the masking order is unconstitutional, and it's void. These judges hold office that the acting secretary of the Department of Health does not. You, as elected school board members, have stated that you will uphold the Constitution, and you're now currently following an order that is not a law. And this order was put out from a woman who was holding a position that she was not voted into. She also does not meet the requirements to be in her position. Stating as she's not a doctor, never has been, she's a lawyer. She wrote this order based on a law from 1955, which gives no authority over non-infected people. This, and I know I've stated this before, but this has real legal liabilities that you all need to consider, because following orders is not a legal defense. And if you are following this unconstitutional order, you must follow it as written. Your school administration has not done this. They have refused to accept and allow medical exemptions as stated in Section 3 of that order. They have restrained my child and physically removed both of my children, which is also going against that order, see in Section 4. And before anybody corrects me on what I just said, the definition of restrain is to control and hold back, keep in check, and to prevent someone from doing something. The definition of physically remove is to extract something from a place or to separate it from something from its surroundings. Also, on top of that, I was not even called when one of my students was taken into the principal's office and made aware that this was happening. Also, I was lied to by another principal about how long my child was kept in the office and where he was taken from the other students and had to eat breakfast in her office. I'd like to end on some personal words. I recently ran for school board on a platform of truth, transparency, and integrity. In keeping with what I promised everyone, I want to state the following. I've been privy to much information from the community who more than sees what all the school board members do in the public eye. They let us know many, many things. You all, I won't say all, occasionally you fall under what appears to be rules for thee but not for me, which is happening way too often in our country. But, and this is completely personal, but I want to make everyone aware of it, one of you has decided that it is okay to send me private messages and to other community members demanding that we do your bidding. That we do as we are told. Then you proceed to try and publicly defame us. I, for one, will not stand for bullying or coercion, especially from an elected official. If I can have 30 more seconds. I was literally demanded, or tried to be demanded, to do the bidding and to appease a narrative that somebody decided to do. Troy, you stepped over the line when you privately messaged me and tried to coerce me to do things that I did not want to do.
And with respect to the policy 903 and the public participation,
I will address Jim.
it has to be directed to the school board members.
Mr. Butler, Troy Wright did this. He stepped over the line decisions for our children when he can't even handle himself by privately messaging and trying to coerce taxpayers. This is an extreme improper conduct in my opinion, and I think that it should be handled by the board and it should be taken care of immediately. Thank
Jason, Dave there, I think this is the.
Snyder, that's an I.
Snyder,
Yeah,
come on up.
good. All right, Jason Snyder. First thing I see across here is a bunch of fear, people through fear. Do you ever attend church, have any scripture in your life? It's one thing to be a little fearful of things every once in a while, but your daily decisions and your routine are directed with fear over your face. That is a portal of hell, and you have no faith in God whatsoever. And this is just, I don't know, as I hear worry, fear, I mean, that's what a dangerous place to live. And, it's sad. I see the hypocrisies. There's hand over fist studies that the master moved. The whole point of saying that the master, this is for protected, it's ridiculous. Everybody goes and sees the kids like this on top of each other. Everybody. Yet we go to school and we do this to the kids. It's a form of torture. It's also teaching them to be subservient class and look to the government as God. That is the long-term projection of this. So it marginalizes their existence, their development, their life and soul they grow, and people they grow into. You're not retarding the kids like this. It's some kind of torment, future torment. You're going to have it for this. It's really sad that people stand there like this. It's so much hypocrisy. Everything is. It's nonsense. We're all just sick of it. Get rid of it. Stop it now. You have to take a stand. This is all part of this trying to set without a shot fired. Well, this is how they propagate in amongst us and divide us. If you're getting your information from the news, you can treat it. It doesn't take long to back those steps up and look at who the ownership is and where their interests are involved in. It's from outside our country, it's their interest. You know, our courts are infiltrated with communists and everything else, and it's dangerous time. If you're following suit with what the communists want you to do, you're not doing any of us any well. We're a small rural community. I like to think protected by prayer. And that's why a lot of the bad stuff happens. It happens in the cities, and we get worried first, and we can protect ourselves from it. But, I mean, we're giving in like that. There's no way God is proud of us for this, to doing this for our children. There's just no way. That's all I have to say. God bless you all.
Warren, Carl Close.
Lauren Walkerwood, I live at 235 Cornham, I actually came here with one question, I ended up with 5 after listening to everybody talk. My first question was, I've been coming to the meetings, and I know last week you guys just kind of read through, and you said like what the general fund was and who was resigning, but you never actually like stated any details. Like, how do you get the details on that?
So, part of the committee of the whole is also different than the voting room. So committee of the whole, the board has provided those details, but often, so for instance, talk about resignation or something like that. That's not something that is released until we have a final vote. So you're knowing that we have access to those, we have those resignations and those kinds of things coming up, and we can talk about them. Normally personnel, there's not a lot of discussion, but that's why you don't see those names. The fund balance, the stuff, is that available out on the board office for them at that first stage? Yeah, so there's a website that has all of this stuff electronically. If you're gonna, you should, and you can get to it through our website, and you should probably look at it before the electronic piece that has the additional attachments rather than just the paper
Okay,
document.
so there's different plans on the website.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And then I actually asked my husband about students and stuff, but my daughter, she's been having a lot of health issues, so I've been having to take her to doctor's appointment. And I picked her up last week for doctor's appointment at like 1:30. And there was a secretary in the office with a mask on. And I looked over and I'm like, okay, whatever. And then actually today, I picked her up at 2:45 because she had another doctor's appointment. And there was 2 secretaries in the office, and neither of them had their masks on. And I was in there about 20 seconds before they they decided to pull them up. And I was just wondering why it was okay for the secretaries to get a master when they're at their desk, and it's not okay for the children to get a master when they're at their desk. And I'm not here to throw the secretaries under the bus, but I'm just kind of here to like make you all aware of that. I just think, and then my friend, she has a third grader, and I'll tell you the story she allowed me. She has 4 children, and her husband works out of town, so she's not even coming with me, but I feel her. And her third grader was at the lunch table, and he was socially distanced. His friend had not moved from his seat. He just got done eating his lunch, and the second that he was done, he had a faculty member, and I have that person's name, but I don't know if I should tell that. And he had a faculty member poking at the air. And he's thinking, geez, like, I just swallowed my food. And then the child went down the hall and saw that faculty member in the principal's office with no mask on. So I understand, obviously, this is a hot button topic, but I think that since it is a hot button topic and there are a lot of parents that are against it, that you can have a little bit more leniency with these children, especially when he hasn't even moved from his seat. Just making you all aware of that. And then explain to me these quarantine rules. If a child's vaccinated, they don't have to quarantine. Is that how it works?
It depends on if they have symptoms. And then you look at, if obviously they have symptoms, then the next step is for them to go and get tested. Then if they're not having symptoms, you look at the distance they are between those students are masked in there. Between that 63, if those students are masked, those can
Is there any recognition of having natural antibodies? Because I know on the CDC website they said that there is no data of anyone that has natural antibodies from a previous COVID infection actually spreading COVID.
What they allow for is if the student has had COVID and has recovered and is not showing any symptoms within the past 3 months, that is a proper exclusion from the group.
How do you show that proof? Did you actually do the antibody test? What's that? Or would the school have to have documentation that the child had previously?
Yeah, more than likely, the parents would have documents from their doctor or from the hospital.
Okay. And I'll just let it be known that I feel that it should be free choice, because this is America, and you should choose what you want to do for your child. I'm a foster parent. My husband and I are both certified foster parents. I understand there are a lot of children in abusive situations, and it's terrible when they get through. But I have hope that the majority of households and parents are not that way. And I mean, I feel sad if the kids quarantined at home and abused while they were there, but I have faith in the community that I guess that would not be the majority of the cases, and that the parents should be able to make their own decisions for their children. And thank you for answering my question.
All right, so I need to correct, I think, what I stated earlier. The content that you'll see on board docs, get an early look. So you can get an early look at it, but if there are pieces in there that are not download visible, then you have to request that through the district office. So if you want to see those disbursements, that's a right to know that you can submit to that, but it's not readily available out on board docs. But you can get to the content and sort of then begin your decide what you might want to ask for. It is on there. We have one final speaker, Kate Mueller.
Good evening. My name is Kate Mueller. I'm from Roaring Spring. I have 4 children in the district, 2 previously, 2 in right now. I come to you tonight as a speaker, as a parent, as well as a teacher. From the parent point of view, I thank you again for keeping the children in. I know there are a lot of people here from the community that are in favor of keeping the masks on. Some because they want their kids in school, others because of the football team, the cheerleaders, the band, everybody that has been involved, as well as the community, the student section look forward to the football games as well. So as a parent, I say thank you for keeping masks on the kids. As a teacher, I applaud you for keeping masks on the children. I have been working with some kids who've been out for 24 straight days because a parent got it, and then a sibling got it, and then they finally got it. So there was like this calendar kept getting longer and longer. And it is very hard to get these kids caught up. And that's just one child. And I've worked after school over and over and over. I'm excusing the child from a lot of activity, or the grades, because not that grades aren't important, but I need this child to learn the material more than I need to have a grade in my grade book, just to get them caught up with their peers. And they're really struggling. And this child came from a family that had the resources to help them. Emailed me through the days, through the nights. I would send video of teaching. And there are a lot of kids out there that don't have that. So when we do lose the masks, which almost happened last week, which could happen here soon, we're going to see those numbers implode. And I listen when I say there's a lot of information where masks don't work, but I'm not a doctor. I don't say one way or the other, and I'm usually researching math stuff, not all of this other stuff. But if masks are not working, why are our numbers so low? How are we keeping so many kids in school that other schools are not if masks didn't really work? And we do give mask breaks, and we do keep the kids apart as much as we physically can, as well as teaching the curriculum that we are intended to teach as well. So again, I say thank you. My next thing I would like you to consider is changing the health and safety plan. I know it's not going to be a popular opinion. If this Supreme Court comes down tomorrow, we lose masks, quarantines will be in large numbers. And I ask then that we rethink what the health and safety plan looks like moving forward from today on. January 17th, supposedly that's the day we're going to lose all of the masks. And I question us whether or not we can still consider health and safety and masks even beyond that until we start to see smaller numbers in the community and within the children and their families. And then my last, probably very not popular opinion is vaccination. My children are vaccinated. I will have my children vaccinated. I don't promote it in school. I don't tell people they have to get it. If somebody asks me if my children are, I tell them to ask Eli. He's right in school. He'll tell you. And he'll tell you. But what I'm saying is the more that are vaccinated, the more that are in school as well. So when the masks are gone, there is no protection for those kids that really, really struggle. Because I think most of us could say when we were on quarantine, our children struggled. A lot of our children struggled. The high struggled, the low struggled, and everybody in between struggled. And as teachers, we struggled to meet their needs more than we ever thought we would ever have to do. So the longer the kids are in school, the more the kids are in school. How do we do that? Masks. And if we can't have masks, vaccination. So that's all I want to say tonight. Again, I thank you for all of your work that you do. I know many of you get attacked personally, privately. Again, those that commit to the conversation on social media, I think you're crazy. But I know that it helps to be open and to talk to people. I get that. But also, I appreciate how much you guys do, and the attacks that you take are not warranted. Thank you.
How does that explain Northern Bedford being optional?
Mr. Snyder,
Fair question?
Mr. Snyder, the board doesn't recognize you.
Okay.
No, okay, you're done.
Yeah. Northern Bedford doesn't live here. They don't miss school.
Pardon me?
They have faith.
So just one point to what Ms. Cooper was saying. When I looked at the data that I've seen, and I look at the total percent of student population, the Spring Cove School District is has a significantly lower percent of their population to date, total population, that has been quarantined. School districts that have not followed the mandate have much higher percentage of their population that aren't mandated. So, I mean, to the point, there is something to this. And, you know, that's something that's, that I've seen the numbers, and it is clear that there's something to this.
Mr. Butler, can I ask a question about what the solicitor said about the vaccinations? Did you say they have to quarantine?
The public comment portion.
Okay, I was just wondering, I thought you said vaccinations still had to quarantine. Okay.
What I was speaking to was addressing the commenter's question specifically about the Department of Health quarantine.
Okay. Superintendent, Dr. Baker.
Hi, good evening. I'm going to share my screen today because I have a PowerPoint for our presentation this evening. I know the board has received a lot of this information at other times throughout, really since 2020. So, but it's like something that I thought would be good to kind of put it all together so we can see it all at one time. I think I'm going to flip something like that.
Nothing good, or
Okay, so ESSER funding, the purpose of those funds, they were provided to districts across the nation to address the impact of COVID-19 on schools and to assist with their response. It is my understanding that every school in Pennsylvania has actually accepted these funds and are utilizing these funds. The allocations to the Spring Cove School District have come in 4 different pots of money. So you can see the first pot is the ESSER 1 funding. That money has already been spent. ESSER 2 funding was next. We have just a couple $1,000s left remaining in that grant. And the ARP ESSER and ARP ESSER set aside are the ones that we're working on at this point. Those are not finalized yet. So all combined, our total allocation is $4,526,855. In looking at the development of our grants, we have considered stakeholder input throughout. We've had meaningful consultation with various stakeholders through informal conversations and input with staff and the school community, through various committees that have a broad range of stakeholders, including community members, parents, students, teachers, support staff, administrators, board members, and I could go on. Some of the primary committees that we utilize for that input are the Professional Education Committee, the Comprehensive Planning Team, and then also our Pandemic Planning Team. Various surveys of our staff and parents and guardians have occurred on various topics. Again, most of these are to our staff, but we have had some from the community as well. Professional Development Survey, our technology surveys, Conditions for Leadership, Teaching and Learning. That was a survey that was done as part of Comprehensive Planning. And then also some health and safety measure surveys that we did with the whole community that included questions about the use of ESSER funds. Input and feedback from our staff and school community is continually accepted by contacting the superintendent as well. With the most recent survey that was sent out as part of the use of ESSER funds, the results that we had from that survey, which was a survey of our school community staff and also parents, the primary things that they wanted to see the money spent on was maintaining high-quality staff, providing high-quality curricular resources such as textbooks and software, providing access to technology, providing individual or small group support and tutoring, offering remote learning as a short-term option to provide continuity of education for students who are quarantined, expanding social, emotional, and mental health services and supports, offering summer school and credit recovery opportunities, and maintaining Spring Cove Cider as an option for those who want a virtual choice. All of those things are things that we continue to do or have done. Additionally, implementing safety measures as part of the COVID response to ensure the health and safety of our staff and students. The primary things that were the top most supported means of safety measures were the frequent cleaning of high-touch surfaces and common areas, frequent opportunities for hand washing and hand sanitizing, frequent cleaning of buses, improving or increasing ventilation, and then providing outdoor learning opportunities. And
again, all of those have been done. So for the use of funds, in determining how to use them, the decisions were made with the school staff and community input that was provided informally and through the committees, from the results of our survey, from our district's health and safety plan, and from demographic data like attendance and enrollment, like for example, how many people are enrolling in cyber school, how many people look like our Springfield Cyber School, how many people are returning after being enrolled there. We plan based on that. Assessment data, and again, ongoing requests. Like I get emails all the time from teachers who go out in the building and they say, you know, we need this too. One example I could think of recently is we just got all of those Promethean active panels. And once we got those, people said, we need keyboards and attached DVD drives. So those are things we're in the process of getting now, based on once, you know, they had one other thing that they wanted, they found something else that they wanted. So we take that input into consideration all the time, as long as we have the funds available. So I'm going to break down each of the funds so that we have, each of the different ESSER grants and how they've been utilized. The first one was ESSER 1. That one was a small one, only $292,685. That's one I said that has already been spent. All of that money was spent for instructional purposes. This was the money we got when it was right after the closure from March through the summer, and we were getting ready to start school, and we had all the rules of what we could do to open, and a lot of schools were not opening because they weren't prepared to meet all the guidelines that were in place at the time. Some of the things we did to make sure we could meet the guidelines to open up was we had to replace a lot of our desks and chairs in order to maximize the social distancing to get everybody in. Before, we had a lot of larger tables and people sitting like right next to each other, so we couldn't properly socially distance. So we had to take out some of our furniture, replace it with furniture with a smaller footprint to be able to give the students a space to the greatest extent possible. We also, in our elementary schools, our 4th and 5th grade teachers were concerned about switching classes. They had done that before, but with COVID, switching classes causes more quarantines, which was going to be difficult. So they wanted to be self-contained, so they asked for additional math materials so that they could be self-contained and eliminate the opportunities for students to be exposed to multiple students. And if you noticed last year with all the quarantines, we definitely had a significantly higher number of quarantines in our secondary schools, and a lot of that is because they were constantly changing classes, so they had different groups of close contacts in each of the classes. In our elementary schools, when there was a case, we had fewer quarantines because it was the same group of students around them for the majority of the day. Software licenses, we did have a lot of students who elected to stay full remote and not come to school at all last year, so our cost for Spring Cove Cyber went up significantly. So the licenses for the Odysseyware program that is utilized for that were paid for through the ESSER fund. And then we also had a lot more students who were carrying their Chromebooks back and forth as opposed to using them just in the classroom. So we had to get some Chromebook cases to protect those devices. And that pretty much wiped out all of our ESSER 1 funds. ESSER 2 funds were broken down into instructional expenses, and then also there's a small bit of non-instructional expenses I'll show you on the next slide. But the great majority of the money, $1.2 million, was used for instructional expenses. A lot of these things are things that we would have done otherwise, but they qualified under the use of funds under ESSER, so we were able to charge the different costs to the ESSER grant. For example, every year we buy different textbooks and software. So last year we bought a lot of new science materials, so biology, chemistry, conceptual physics. Those were purchased out of the grant money. Lexia software licenses for special education students, and 2 different software programs for computer courses that were operating at the high school. The Promethean active panels, you know about, we got those in every classroom across the district. That's 143 boards. Those are pretty cool. They have all the multifunctions. I've shown you those before. That was a significant part of this grant. And those replaced our old Promethean boards that didn't have very much functionality anymore. They were still working, but they didn't do all the cool things that these can do. And we had gotten those Promethean boards previously through stimulus money back in, when was that? Maybe 2010 maybe, whenever the stimulus money came through. So, that was a lot of boards bought at one time for a grant, so this was like a great opportunity to just wipe those out and buy all new ones through a grant again, but with the state-of-the-art technology. And we've had a lot of positive comments from our teaching staff and our students about the things they can do in the classroom instruction with those. Chromebooks and Google licenses that go to operate the Chromebooks, we buy those every year, so we just kind of utilize some of the funding toward that. We replace a few every year. So that was part of the money. Additional technology, as part of the technology surveys, we did at least 2 different technology surveys so far with our staff, and basically said to them what you need, and we were able to provide them some of the things that they needed, or replace some of the things that they had that were no longer operating to the level of quality that we wanted them to. With the additional Chromebooks, our tech department said they were having trouble getting the new ones out to people fast enough because they had to do a lot of hand programming. The Go boxes were something that was purchased to help automate the programming of what needed to be done so that the Chromebooks could get out to our students and staff quickly. And then also for Spring Cove Cyber, not only is there the software, but there's the contracted services of the teachers, so that price of that cost was put into ESER too. On the non-instructional end, we only spent about $117,000 of the money on the non-instructional costs, but we did purchase a lot of additional disinfectant to address the fact that we were cleaning the rooms more often, doing the halo fogging of rooms where there were cases and things like that on weekends and evenings. Cases of hand sanitizer, we went through a lot more of that. We had a lot more things put in storage because we moved out furniture and we were having to order things well in advance because of issues with being able to get the materials to come quickly, so we got a storage shed to store some of our supplies. HVAC, we always did buy filters, but we were able to use the money for that, so we used some of the money for filters. We also bought equipment for changing the filters because we've always had to rent equipment for changing the filters, which is kind of a pain because you have to find, and when they don't always have one available for you, like so it's a lift, they don't always have lifts available for you to rent them when you want them. So, we were able to get that equipment so that we can use it when we need it, and we can use them for other things as well. And it had been changing light bulbs and all kinds of things with them as well, but also the HVAC filters. And we also contracted with the HVAC company to do 2 extensive cleanings of the HVAC system to make sure that it was working at the highest level of functioning in order to make sure that it is blowing out the air the best that it can to increase the ventilation to keep the students safe. One of our nurses needed another bed for the nurse's office. She requested that just due to more students being ill, so we provided that for her. And then this one to me, so I kind of see it as falling under instructional, but I guess technically because it's infrastructure of the building, it's not. But basically because of the additional equipment with technology equipment, we needed to do upgrades to our server, and so all the hard drives and things that relate to that as part of the infrastructure upgrade fell under these non-instructional expenses too. And that's pretty much what our ESER 2 expenses are. We're waiting for a couple bills and a couple supplies that haven't still come in yet, but that one will be closed out soon. Our ESER is one that, like I said, is not yet finalized, but some examples of the thing, and with all of these grants, you can go back to Hawaii to March of 2020 with things that you're purchasing. So we've kind of just shifted costs, things we were buying otherwise into this grant. So basically, or things that are coming, we have projected in here because we'll be able to utilize the funds through 2024. So we have a curriculum cycle. You've seen that chart with what we purchase each year in curriculum. Last year we had secondary math, so we were able to use the ESER funds to purchase the new secondary math textbooks. We also got physical science, chemistry, and physics books last year. The teachers this year are now looking at the English language arts curriculum, so they'll be getting their new resources for that next year. And then the following year would be social studies in the cycle, so our social studies teachers will be looking at that. And along with that, we often have software expenses as well, so those would be in there as well. Small group interventions were included. That some of the things were like level literacy kits for our reading support teachers and licenses to go with those. Also, Lexia software has been utilized by our special ed teachers. That has been charged to ESER. Technology, again, we've added access points to be able to allow the technology to work more quickly and better. Wireless keyboards and DVD drives are one of the things I just mentioned earlier to go with the new active panels. We're in the process of getting those. They haven't all come in yet, but we're in this process of getting getting those. We've sent students to summer school through the IU, and we've also paid for credit recovery credits for students, which usually the students had to pay for those themselves, but we have been able to pay for those through the grant, which has been helpful because a lot of people are struggling with COVID and that kind of thing, so it's been helpful to be able to provide those to them for free. Cleaning supplies, some of the things we've done with cleaning supplies are new carpet scrubbers and the electronic wipes, the active panels, meaning can't wash those with normal kinds of cleaners, so there's special electronic wipes for those. And then again, we continue to have cyber expenses and Chromebooks and just the standard things we have all the time. We're able to charge some of that to other funds. And by the way, with that has helped us to not raise taxes the last 2 years. So that's been, a benefit this month. Also, the ESSER set-aside funds, that's a separate, smaller grant. Again, that one is one that is not yet finalized. We're working on that. That funding must be used to address learning loss, social, emotional, and mental health support, and related professional development, summer and after-school programming, reading support, and improvement. And this is pretty much focused on like special subgroups. So the majority, almost all of this money is going to support our special education program with the interventions and supplies that he needs. We haven't spent a whole lot on that with our ESSER funding, and this one is targeted for special needs groups. So these sums for special ed and also low income. So you have heard people say, that there's a lot of strings with this. Honestly, every grant has strings with it, but honestly, most of these strings are strings we have every day. So I kind of want to walk through the strings associated with this one so you kind of see what they all are. So you see they're things we're pretty much already doing, other than a lot of extra paperwork for me and people in my office. But I mean, that's what we're used to doing, so no problem. One of the things is we have to file assurances with PDE. That's put in the grant. You just have to check off saying you're doing all the things that are expected, which are the things you're going to see on the next 2 slides. You have to continue to compensate your employees and contractors to the greatest extent possible. That was one that was from pretty much the beginning when people were shut down. We were required by the school code to continue to pay the teachers. We did that. We had to work things out to get the bus drivers compensation and the different contractors. So all of that was done, so that's not a problem. Maintaining inventory records and purchase orders and receipts for applicable equipment. Things like, technology that has a certain price to it. We can't have computers walking off, so we have to track all that and know where it is and be able to have an inventory of all that. That's standard operating procedures for the district. We order everything using purchase orders. That's standard operating procedures for us with everything we do. Cooperate with records inspections. I think last week I shared with the board that we had 2 different monitoring events, one with 2 of our PCCD grants and one with homeless. I mean, those monitoring events and audits, those are standard operating procedures for us. That's basically when those auditors or monitors come in, we have to cooperate with them with showing them whatever records they need so that they can verify that we're using the money properly and we're doing what we're expected to do. Comply with all reporting requirements like submitting quarterly reports. When any grant we have, we pretty much every quarter have to submit, here's how much money you gave us so far, here's how much money we spent so far, those types of things. Mrs. Hazenstab does most of that for us, and you do that every quarter. So this is nothing new. It's the same thing we do all the time. Implement appropriate fiscal monitoring and internal controls. Again, that's the business offices, and you can see her shaking her head because our little CPA there is the queen of internal controls. That's just your checks and balances, making sure that I didn't just go home and spend all this money. It's got to go through, this person's doing the purchase order, this person's paying the bills, this person's doing the quarterly reports. Everybody's checking to make sure that everybody's hands are on it so that everybody sees that the money is used properly. Those controls, again, are part of our everyday operations. We have to track grant funds separately from other funds and other grants. Again, that's part of our everyday operating. It's like we run our financial reports based on, this is the financial report for the general budget. This is a financial report for ESSER 1. This is a financial report for Title 1. This is a financial report for IDEA. Everything is kept separate so that you know what the money was spent for and there's records to check that. Again, that's everyday operations for us. And again, these are the things I'm checking off. I'm checking off saying we do what we do every day. Let's see. Provide equitable services to non-public schools. Once in a while with grants, I don't really know, I can't explain why they do this, but sometimes when the feds give us money, they give us money and say, this part of it is for this private school or that private school, and we're responsible for getting them that money. Like, they tell us how much is theirs, and we just have to contact the private school and say, like, what do you want to do with your money? It's called having, like, a meaningful consultation with them. They tell us what they want to do, we order it for them, we get it for them. So the only one of these ESSER grants that came with that requirement was ESSER 1, and there was $2,179 that we had to work with local private schools to get them their things that they want. Again, we do that all the time with Title I money, so it's no different. They did not do that with the other ESSERs, only with ESSER 1. Additional insurances, these ones are some things that are a little bit more specific to ESSER, but again, were things we were already doing anyway for the most part. Describe how the district plans to overcome barriers that impede access to the program. So that was like in the grant application, I had to write a little tiny essay that basically just, like a paragraph, that basically just said things we were doing, like, for example, providing Chromebooks for people that don't have technology at home, providing the grab-and-go meals when we were closed so that people could get their free lunches. So we just kind of took things we're doing to help people that needed things that they might not have otherwise. So that was just a little paragraph telling them what we're already doing. Conduct operations without discrimination. I mean, that again is just every day where you can't be discriminating against any groups of people. Comply with maintenance of equity requirements. Maintenance of equity requirements do not apply to our school district. Maintenance of equity requirements are only for districts that have the same grade span. Like, so for example, years ago when I was principal here, we had 2 elementary schools that were both K to 5. In that case, then maintenance of equity would have applied. We would have had to make sure that we were treating both of those elementary schools equitably. Now that we have only 1 grade span per school, one's K to 2, one's 3 to 5, then 6 to 8, there's only 1 school for each grade span. Maintenance of equity does not apply. That said, we've always, for years, have always looked at equity as far as our schools go. We look at things like, we do an equity report every year where we look at things like how many staff do we have that are new in that building? How many staff do we have that are experienced in that building? How many staff do we have that are not certified in that building? We don't very often have anybody that's not certified. It's usually like for a short period of time when like a teacher leaves and we like have a substitute for a while so we can get a certified person put in place. But we look at things like that. We look at the percentage of low-income students in the building and those kinds of things. And we look at just, is there a way to make it more equitable if possible? Honestly, for us, when there's not multiple grades, when we have like the single grade span buildings like we do, there's not a whole lot of things you can do because certification and all that plays into effect. But years ago when we had like 2 elementary schools, we had to look at that. And it was like if you had too many people that were new teachers in this building, you needed to try to get people to shift and hire new teachers to this one so it was more balanced out. Implementing evidence-based interventions, again, we just have to say we're doing that and tell them some of the things we do. We have a ton of things we're already doing that are considered evidence-based interventions. Our reading recovery program, our everyday math program, our Too Good for Drugs and Violence program. And there's just a few off the top of my head. There's lots of them. The Wilson Reading, the SRA, lots of the things that we do are considered evidence-based interventions. We just have to say, yes, we're doing some of those, here's what's going on. Address the impact of COVID-19 on underserved students as identified by the school district. Again, that's pretty much the same thing as the barriers. We just kind of had to say to them what are the different things that we're doing. Like to address low-income students. We made sure that they had the Chromebooks, and we made sure that they had their free lunches or whatever. Again, that's just like a paragraph in the grant. Develop and post a health and safety plan. We already had to do that for the state of Pennsylvania, so that's already been done. Actually, the nice thing about it is because of ESSER, that they kind of gave a requirement, which you'll see in the next slide, of what the health and safety plan had to have. And this, they used the Fed template. They said we could use that instead. That was way simpler, way fewer requirements than PD's template last year. That's why, if you notice, this year we have a lot more flexibility. We have a lot more things we were able to do than what we did last year, and that's because we're able to utilize this template this year, and it gives us a lot more leeway. So we have posted that health and safety plan. We have to review that health and safety plan every 6 months, make revisions as needed. So we are coming up on that. In the next month or two, or 6 months will be up. So our pandemic planning team will be looking at that again and seeing if any revisions need to be made or if it can stay the same. Provide PDE with the URL to the webpage where all of this stuff is posted. That's our COVID page. So we had to just, in the grant, put in that website so that they know how to access all of this. And then I said, back to the health and safety plan requirements. Basically with that, these are the health and safety plan requirements. We have to support the prevention and mitigation policies in line with the CDC guidelines as practicable. So basically that means we have to look at the CDC guidelines and figure out what works for us, and we get to use stakeholder input and what is going to work in our school district. So we do not have to match up identically to what the CDC says. We just have to make sure we're in line with it as practical for us. We have to address students' academic needs, emotional and mental health needs, including student health services and food services. Again, that's a lot of things we're already doing. We have school nurses. We're providing the grab-and-go bags. We have mental health supports, all of that. We're just saying we have to have those and we already have it anyway. And then we have to describe in our health and safety plan this list of things that are all part of the CDC recommendations. Again, we don't have to follow exactly what it says. The CDC is giving us recommendations, so we just have to address each area. So our health and safety plan that has been on the website all year addresses every area. So like the one area is universal and correct wearing of masks. That does not mean we have to have universal masking, because as you know, our health and safety plan says masks are optional. We just have to address that area. So under that area, we've addressed it as masks would be optional, except for obviously when it's superseded by mask orders. And then we put in, we tell people how to wear them properly, those kinds of things. So that's how we've addressed it. Modifying our facilities to allow for physical distancing, that's things like we said before, we provided different furniture. That also falls under things like the cohorting, which is like trying to keep our classes together when they can be kept together, trying to keep seating charts consistent, things that prevent them from getting too much exposure to other students so that there's fewer quarantines to try to keep them in school. Hand washing and respiratory etiquette, we teach the kids, how to cough into their arm, the proper use of throwaway tissues, those kinds of things. Cleaning and maintaining healthy facilities, including ventilation. That's where things fall in, like maintaining the supply of disinfectant, replacing our HVAC things frequently. We run our HVAC system more so that it brings in more air from outside, cycles it more than what we used to do before COVID to help keep fresh air for the students. Contact tracing in combination with isolation and quarantine in collaboration with PADOH. Basically, that just says we have to cooperate with the Department of Health. We always have to do that with all communicable diseases. I mean, like years ago when I was here as principal, I had shingles. We had to call the Department of Health and say I have shingles, and we had to contact certain people and tell them, they were around me when I had shingles. So the Department of Health tells us what to do with any communicable disease. So basically, that's what we're doing with this. Diagnostic and screening testing, we had to say what we were going to do with that. We basically said we're not doing testing. We're not a medical facility. We don't want to do that. So basically, we said we were not screening either. We told people screen at home before you come to school. You make the decision if you're well enough to come to school or not. So that's what we came up with. So you see what I'm saying? We're addressing each area, but with what input we got from our school community and our pandemic planning team. Efforts to provide vaccinations to school communities. Again, with that one, we did not say we were going to provide vaccinations on site or that we were going to require vaccinations. What we said to address that, because we have to address each area, is that we would provide the information to people when new information came out. So when we get the information sent to us from PDE or from the Pennsylvania Department of Health, we send out that information. So we told you, when the vaccine became available for students that were ages 5 to 12, we let you know that was available. You decide for yourself then what you want to do with that. We also are a pod, it's called, for Blair County EMA. So if they ever want to use our facilities to give out vaccinations in an emergency or whatever, they can do that. that we would be like closed when that happens, and they could do that for any kind of a vaccine or any kind of a treatment for anything that would be going on. That we have that pod agreement. Honestly, when COVID came, we kind of thought they might be using our facilities to give out the vaccine when the vaccine first came. And they told us, even though you're a pod, we're not going to use your site. We don't want to be bringing people in to your schools and potentially bring people with COVID in your schools. We're going to use like hospitals and other sites that don't have students. And so, even though we are a pod and would cooperate with them with allowing them to operate their own center if they needed to, because we need to do that as part of being a pod, that doesn't apply to our students. We're not doing one like where anybody would be mandated to attend or not. And like I said, there's no plans to utilize that pod. Appropriate accommodations for children with disabilities with respect to health and safety policies. Basically what that is just, we need to make sure that we're meeting the needs of any students that have any disabilities. We have students who do have medical exemptions from their doctor that they can't wear a mask or a face shield. We have students who are not able to be very successful with remote learning that need to have additional support from their teacher as part of their IEP. So different things like that, we meet the needs of our students with disabilities. And then we need to coordinate with state and local health officials. Pretty much for us, that we don't really have like a county Department of Health, so we fall under the Pennsylvania Department of Health. And then also we get a lot of support from both county and then. So that's basically the requirements. I know last week there was questions about critical race theory too. As you can see in here, there's absolutely nothing about that in there. No requirement for that. What I just showed you are the requirements. That said, I'm not saying there wouldn't be somewhere that somebody could put that into there, because you could pretty much do anything with this money you wanted to. But that's not part of our curriculum, and I actually talked to some of our social studies teachers and was like, I know you're up for curriculum review in another year or so. Is this something you're looking at? Because I really hadn't heard any discussion of them wanting to look at that. And, I really didn't know that it seemed like it really fit with what we teach here. And they basically said, that sounds more like a grad class on theory to us. Our courses are focused more on history and government, civics, that type of thing. If the board is interested in the future, I could actually get the social studies teachers to come and talk to you about what they do cover in their curriculum. I think they would be very interested in sharing that with you. We try to what? January, we could look at that so that you could just, have an opportunity to hear about the types of things that they do teach. And then there's been some questions and concerns, and I think they would love to share what they're teaching with you. And again, with all of this stuff too, these are federal grants. We always have taken federal grants. We have Title I grants. Those pay for all of our reading specialists and their supplies. We have Title II grants. Those pay for all of our professional development. We have Title IV grants. Those pay for all different kinds of things. Most recently, we've been using them for art and music. We've got some pretty cool things for our art and music departments, like some graphic design printers, some fancy kind of like graphic design pen type of things. We got some big, expensive music equipment from Mr. Beloger that he was pretty excited about. That's all still coming in. And some kind of new keyboard and new type of saxophone thing. But that all stuff, things, but those are still coming in, some of those things. I'm planning to actually put some of that in one of the upcoming newsletters, do a feature on that once we have that stuff and have it in use, because honestly, I don't know that much about it yet either, because I basically just said to him, here's how much money you have, show up, and send me what you need, because I'm not a music teacher. So, he was pretty excited about the things he was able to get through Title IV money. IDEA money is also federal money that we utilize for our special education program. So all of the different things, like the majority of this stuff, the requirements for this are the same type of requirements we have for all that money that we've been taking for years.
I just want to, I know you said it didn't make sense, but just to go back to this point. Last week, the feeling I got from the speaker was, shame on you for taking this money and doing these things, apparently. When all 500 school districts and 167 charter school districts in the state of Pennsylvania took all three of these. So it's not like we went out on our own and did this, and as Dr. Baker indicated, that's an important part of our funding. And then it was indicated that because of this, and this is research that was done that week, because of taking this, we were required to teach critical race theory because they were trying to start a narrative that wasn't true. It's not true. Go look at the APR guidelines. There are allowable uses, and there may be bullets in there that you can read to that, but allowable is different than required. Okay? So please, if you're going to do your research, go to the right depth and understand it, because when you set that, and then when you continue, and you put that on Facebook, and you continue that false narrative, it does nobody any good. It's a false narrative that is not true.
All the documentation was there.
Dr. Baker, I do have one question. Hopefully it's a simple one. Under assurances, and this is just for a personal question. When we have to do equitable services to non-public schools, it's a very small amount. Are those schools within our school district, or just a school within our community, or within the county, or like where, we don't have to name the school, like do they give it to the school district to say, these are non-public in your area, you need help support?
The ones that are, we have to transport the ones that are within 10 miles of our district. So like for us, I mean, I'm not even getting involved, but like Penmont Great Commission, Blair County Christian, those are some popular ones around here where we have students that attend there sometimes.
So then these schools that our students attend, not our school, public school, but our students that attend.
It would be students who are residents of this district who elect to attend one of those schools. But then they also have to generate money. So like, for example, like a lot of these things tie to like low income. So they would have to be usually like a low income student that attends there, that then the state calculates based on the feds, calculate based on, whether or not they qualify as low income, and then, generates a certain amount of money based on, what they're like, it's part of like our number of students in our district, they get their share kind of thing. So like that tiny piece of, you saw there, I think it was like $2,000 or something, was probably like one or two kids generated that out of that pot of money, out of that like $200,000, that share of that. If that student had been here, that would have been that student's share of that pot of money, so we have to give it to that school where that student attended.
Makes sense, thank you.
Sometimes they give it directly to them, and don't go through us, sometimes they go through us. All right, I think I'm done sharing on this, and I think we're back then. If you don't have any further questions, we'll go back to me.
All right. Going to move on with the approval of the agenda. I had a note here because we had some new people here, and we almost touched on it earlier tonight when we said, hey, when we come to the committee of the whole, there's usually a lot more discussion and question answering. So by the time we get to here, unless we found additional questions, this part usually goes pretty quickly because we've had the chance to ask for questions and do that. So we're going to move through this part. So I have approval of the agenda for the November 15th, 2021 regular meeting.
Second.
Okay, you've heard the motion properly made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor give their consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Approval of agenda approval of minutes for the November 15th, 2021 regular meeting. Oh, I'm sorry. I was reading the black text, not the highlight text. Motion to approve the following minutes. October 11th, 2021, committee of the whole meeting. February 18th, 2021, regular meeting.
Second.
For the motion properly made, seconded, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Educational Program Committee.
Item A, we have a motion to approve the purchase of the following additional instructional software for use at Central High School. It's for the MEMBeam, cost is $660 for the 2021-22 school year.
You've heard the motion made and seconded. Is there any questions or discussion?
I actually had a parent let me know that her child actually was able to use the software without seeing the
Any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Finance and Legal Committee.
Anyway, motion to approve the following financial reports. General fund for September 2021 and food service for August and September 2021.
You've heard the motion properly made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Item B, motion to approve the following disbursements. General fund for September 2021 and food service for August and September 2021.
Second. You've heard the motion properly made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Item C, motion to approve the following contracts agreements pending any revisions required by the solicitor and/or the district. Out to the near advertised.
Second.
You've heard the motion properly made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none.
I can tell you, we got a quote today that we're waiting for approval today for and it's $98 cheaper with this agreement to run that than it is with just this one
Okay.
One ad is $98 cheaper
Oh,
by
okay.
this agreement. That's why we do this agreement every year. Because they give us a discount. And that's just an example, because this is approved, they gave me the rate without it and the rate with it.
Any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
And item D, motion to approve the list of requests for exoneration, exemption from payment of the 2021 per capita tax.
There's a motion properly made and seconded. Any discussion? Please understand what goes on here for capita. Move, students. No further discussion? All those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
And we do have actually one more. Item E, motion to donate 14 used jerseys to the quarterback club to use as senior gifts, with the quarterback club replacing the 14 used jerseys with 14 new ones at a total cost of $1,487.93.
You've heard the motion properly made and seconded. Any discussion?
Quarterback club.
Okay, hearing none, all those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Student Services and Activities Committee.
Item A, a motion to approve the hiring of Courtney Lingefeld as a varsity girls assistant basketball coach for the 2021-22 winter season with a salary of $2,652.20.
Second. You've heard the motion properly made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor give your consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Item B, motion to revise the list of official stipends for the 2021-22 school year to reflect the addition of a single game stipend of $50 for junior high basketball officials.
You've heard the motion properly made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor give your consent by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Item C is a motion to approve the following individuals as game workers for the 2021-22 school year. Keely Musselman, Noah Reed, Kimberly Smith, and Caitlin White.
You've heard the motion properly made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor give their consent by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Nothing under buildings and grounds, personnel, and executive.
Item A, motion to accept the resignation and STEM teacher at Spring Cove Middle School with her last working day being December 17, 2021. At the time of her resignation, Mrs. Gopher will have served in the district for 8.5 years.
Any first motion properly made and seconded. Any discussion?
Thank you for referring.
Hearing no additional, all those in favor give their consent by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Item B, motion to accept the resignation of Courtney Convernier, English language arts teacher at Spring Cove Middle School with her last working day being November 15, 2021.
Second.
You've heard the motion properly made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor give their consent by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Item C, motion to accept the resignation for the purpose of retirement from Linda Crowley, mathematics teacher at Central High School, effective at the close of 2021-22 school year. At the time of her retirement, Mrs. Crowley will have served in the district for 23 years.
You've heard the motion properly made and seconded. Any discussion? Thank you for your service. Any additional comments or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor give their consent by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Item D, motion to employ the individuals listed below as paraprofessionals, contingent upon receipt of all required employment clearances and paperwork, with their start date of employment to be determined. Monica Miller and Victoria Wade. These positions are for 182 days per year and 5.5 hours per day, with a starting rate of pay set at $10.75 per hour.
Second. You've heard the motion properly made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor give their consent by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Item E, motion to approve the list of additional volunteers for the 2021-22 school year.
Second.
You've heard the motion properly made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor give their consent by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Can we talk about the map again before the end of the meeting? I think some good questions were brought up about, and I personally have some questions. We're planning for the future here a little bit. We think January 17th is going to be the day. So some concerned parents asked me, and we're not singling out any sports teams, but we're talking about the whole district. So if you have a student that opts to mask, and that student does not want to be quarantined, but another student opts to not mask. And I think there's this fine line here where we can't legally separate the masked and the unmasked, which I think would make sense. You would say these are the masked students, they've opted to not like risk being quarantined. And then you have this group that says, I would rather not wear a mask, I'll take the quarantine. Is there any solution here of separating masked and unmasked in a health and safety plan coming up on the 17th? The other question I have is, I just think about how great this is to keep track of, because if a student, we have, right now everyone's masked. Whenever the masks go optional, I know some students are going to wear a mask one day, they're not going to wear the mask the next day. Some kids are going to wear a mask in the morning, then not until not in the afternoon, like in my case. But how do we keep track of? It's going to be so chaotic. I feel terrible. How are we going to determine who was wearing a mask, who wasn't wearing a mask, and can we figure out a way that a student is like, hey, I have a big dance recital coming up, or whatever. I'm going to wear a mask, but that person can't be quarantined because somebody else didn't wear it. Is it wrong to separate in a health and safety plan seating for mask versus unmasked?
And obviously there are some restrictions, with respect to, hearing us saying segregation and segregation. Obviously, there's a different situation for students that have, medical conditions where they're, being compromised and whatnot. It's difficult to work to start cutting off that line. So, I don't have a good solution, what's going to see what's going to happen, because obviously, if the Supreme Court, decides to terminate the stay, which there's going to be court to the Supreme Court all the way to the stay. So we might have that answer, for the case of my question next week, potentially about, okay, we're going to do that optional or not. So, all we can see is, any good options at this point, and how far we can really push these quarantine restrictions to see what really are the options if we can come back to the options.
I guess it'd be a little bit like my misinterpretation of the court saying that it's unconstitutional when they went on the mask mandate. But the quarantine and everything else still stays. The only thing that changes is that you can't force the mask. So we're still in the same boat with parents saying, I want my kids to wear a mask, but I don't want them in school. And then another parent saying, I don't want them to wear a mask. And it's kind of the weight we're bearing here is that we're trying to appease almost two different groups. Rightfully so on each side. How can we do it in a way that's legal and that's not biasing? I mean, just throwing it out there as a board, because I don't want us to come up to the January meeting and be like, okay, what are we going to do right now? We got to fix this problem right now. Unless the court rushes to their decision before the 17th, we know the 17th this decision's going to come up and what we're going to do.
What the index said is that the Supreme Court is considering nullifying a stay until they hear the case. Is that
correct? As of today, the Department of Health, they were directed to file an answer to the application to terminate the stay. There's other individuals that have requested to potentially file, supporting groups in termination of the stay. So we'll continue to monitor that, because if for some reason the Supreme Court is saying, yes, we get rid of the stay, that would mean that the public will order is back in effect regardless of who, filed that. So that would change the game for the entirety of school districts in Pennsylvania and all school districts. So we'll continue to watch that, because if something happens, we will probably look at it and the administration.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking for strategies.
Yes.
Strategies around mitigating the potential in a mask optional scenario to minimize quarantines more than we've been able to do with the mask. And I don't know what the answer is. Because while our numbers seem to have gone up, they've been good. I mean, that's just like we have throughout the district, our numbers have been good. So we want to continue to keep as many kids as good as possible. So if masks are helping and then no longer part of the equation, or a significant number of them isn't, what are the other ways? And we're already doing some here in self-inflicted.
We did remind the teachers to keep the students distance as far as they can, but
Right.
we don't always have enough room, and depending on the number of students, particular courses, they can only be more than 6 feet apart. That's impossible. But they get them as far apart as they can, and that makes fewer people.
I mean, some often I've heard parents saying, which I don't want to see, is many parents said, well, maybe I would cyber my kid the week before. They would actually have them cyber the week before any event, a game or anything else, that takes them out of that. So they would do an at-home
They
learning.
have to do like a new marking period. Student like in and out of cyber, that's a whole enrollment process. So they can do that on marking. If someone wants to go, we switch them on marking period.
So
You can't just go in and out.
If we go this way and stay at the end, we can go mid.
They
mid-January.
We just finished one up, so. So there's another question that was brought to me about our meeting. And fact, while we do have people that come to meetings that do not wear masks, and policy says they should, do we need to go virtual while the policy says no mask, or is it okay with so I need to grant question that I was asking. Do we want our meetings in December and January until this works out?
My vote is no.
Okay, good. Thanks. I had to ask the question because it came up. So any other discussion of them on that topic before talking about remaining board events?
I mean, I don't think we have a room that's bigger than this room, yet smaller than the main. I feel bad for all the seats.
Yeah, it's also evident to taking people who smoke masks into school. So there's
Outside. Be quick.
Outside.
Yeah, be real quick, man.
Okay, so calendar board events next, the next board meeting will be Monday, December 6th, 2021. It will be a reorganization and regular meeting in the administration office boardroom at 7 p.m. And after we swear in those during the election and the other organizational pieces, we will be interviewing candidates for an open position on the board, which is I understand you're going to be taking the 4-year term. So there will be a 2-year term appointment that we will be interviewing candidates for. Anything else for the cause? Motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Any adjournment?